All right, so we're back here. It is January 5th, 2024. We are new year here. I got a really interesting person here today. Jeff, he is in Philadelphia's area, correct, Jeff?
That's correct. Yep, outside of
Okay.
Philadelphia.
And we've been following each other on Twitter, on X now for quite some time. And Jeff posts a lot of charts, okay? And when I contacted him, I find these charts very interesting charts that he's talking about commodities, mostly gold, silver, stuff like that. But his story, what he told me, is he says, yeah, I will cover some charts a little bit, but I really think I have an even more interesting story for you than just talking about charts. And I'm going to just leave it up to our listeners to hear your story for right now. So I'm just going to leave the mic to you, right? Pass it to you and go ahead and tell us. I cannot wait to hear this, by the way. So give us a two, 3
absolutely.
minute rundown, your life
Sure.
story real quick with a little bit politics.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
Yeah, and thanks first off for reaching out, because I've been kind of waiting for people like you and me to connect on this front. We got a lot of us, at least a lot on Twitter, that kind of do what you and I do, know that something, just something out there isn't quite right. And most people, when if you look at all the charts that I post and most of the the content that I put on, which is 99% charts, and out of those 99%, they're 99% silver and gold. But being that, typically those type of people do not come from a background where maybe you would consider me to have been a socialist, if you will. So the way that I got to gold and silver might be a little bit different path than people would think, but it's pretty interesting. Yeah, I was up until about 2018, specifically like the summer, full-blown socialist, democratic socialist, whatever you want to call it. Followed Bernie Sanders during the 2016 campaign. Quite frankly, though, I'll be honest, didn't vote for him, because at that time, my mentality, and I know this will ring with everybody, I was in the camp of, dude, anything to keep Trump out of office, right? I was in that camp where I was like, we got to do anything to keep this guy's insane, whatever. And so, voted for Clinton in the primary of 2016. Obviously, the media is leading everything up like this is going to be a breeze. It's going to be 90 to 10, 90%, 10% favor, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyways, so election night comes around in 2016, and I woke up the next morning and I was, I get goosebumps thinking about it right now. Devastated. I was like, oh my God, how did this happen? And so essentially, without getting into too much detail on that, it got to me, man. Like, I was in all the Russiagate stuff, like every single bit of media information that was out there on that whole situation, fully bought into. And so it was at that time I was like, maybe 6 months or so went by, just, seeing all the stuff that was going on with the media and Trump and this, that, and the other. I'm like, man, I got to do something. I got to do something about this. And if any of y'all remember, there was an old video from Obama when he said, if you guys don't like the way things are going, get yourself a clipboard and some petitions and go out there and change it. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And I went out and I saw what happened in the primary. Like, I started following the Young Turks a little bit, and there was particularly on the Young Turks, Jimmy Dore. And so after all that, I started seeing like, holy crap, man, like, the Democratic primary was like not on the up and up and all that stuff in 2016. All these things just started kind of, coming up in my head as I was paying attention now to, like, I kind of left the mainstream, so to speak, started following in the Young Turks and Jimmy Dore and all that stuff. And anyways, I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, I got to go farther left. So I ended up running for state office in Pennsylvania. And, I guess my name is on every single one of my charts, by the way. My name is Jeff McFall. You can look me up. I was on the campaign. I sent you a link to it. And anyways, again, lost the primary. that whole situation of running for state representative in a primary in the Democratic Party, we could take hours. We could take hours. I could tell you about the stuff that happened in that process. I mean, just unbelievable. So anyways, I lost the primary, got like 27, 25, 27% of the vote. And after that, I was like, I'm going to go even harder left. I'm going to run for Congress. I'm going to run for U.S. Congress next. And, all this time, I'm still maintaining a day job, all that stuff. I was talking to my boss one day, and he's like, man, look, like, I get everything you're saying, all that. He's like, yo, you should listen to someone that has a different opinion on things, like really smart. This dude's name is Peter Schiff, right? You should just listen to him sometime. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. I'll listen to anybody. I will listen to anybody. Because one of the things I always, even when I was, what you would consider a hardcore lefty, I want to hear what everyone has to say. I want to hear free speech, all that stuff. Always been for that. Well, anyways, I get, it happens that Schiff did a interview with Joe Rogan sometime around August or September 2018.
I remember
I
that.
listened to what that dude said. You remember that? Okay.
I do. I watched that interview. Yep.
Yeah. So I watched that, and here he's talking about, he's like, the Obama, like, he's like, we never had an economic recovery. It's like, we all we had was a bubble. We had a bubble. And he started talking about, that side of things. And I'm like, well, this is BS. Like, this dude doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, of course we had an economic recovery. Like, look at the stock market, look at the blah, blah, blah. Look at the stock market, which is funny back then in 2018. It's comical now. But anyways, he's like, hey, look, man, I told everybody the housing crisis was coming back, and I got all these videos on YouTube and all this. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna go check it out. And damn sure, man, I started looking at his Peter Schiff was right videos, and I'm like, this dude predicted the future. You know what I mean? Like, he was literally the one in particular that got me was the Mortgage Bankers Conference in 2006, where this dude laid out the entire arc of what was going to happen, how it was going to unfold, and how the people were laughing at him and asking him these silly questions from the audience, like, should we just slit our wrists now? And anyways, I'm like, well, damn, the dude predicted the future. Why are we not listening to that? And from there, I mean, it was just bam. I started looking at, he always, obviously, Schiff is constantly talking about gold. So I went back and started looking at gold. I had no clue about the gold standard. I had no clue about inflation. I had no clue about any interest rates, none of that. But it just so happened at that time, when I came across that video of Schiff, I was buying my second house. But this one we were buying now was like, this is our house. This is the house my wife and I are going to be in for a long time. Like, we had it built and all this stuff. And so if you remember in 2018 in the fall, we were in the economic recovery, and the 10-year had passed, the 10-year treasury note had passed like 3.5% or so. And the mortgage rates were, we ended up getting a 4.25 on our house. And I was talking to the guy that got us our rate, and he was like, look, man, you want to know what's going on? He was like, just follow the 10-year treasury. Just pull it up on Yahoo Finance or whatever. And from that moment, hooked. I mean, I was hooked on all this stuff. And so essentially, September 2018, and I sent you a chart of gold, like a long-term chart of gold. September 2018 is when I bought my first ounce of gold, my first ounce of silver. And if you look at that chart, it's always just been fascinating to me.
Let me pull it up. Hold on, see if I can do this real quick.
Yeah, sure.
See if I can have you, since you mentioned that, we'll probably do just one chart right here.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's see. Tell me if you see it on the screen there.
Don't see it yet.
All right, hold on. All right. How about now?
Oh, yeah, here we go.
All right.
Cool. Yep, got it. And so, yeah, if you look at that, I marked this, and I've marked it on a lot of my Twitter posts in the past. September 2018 is when I bought my first ounce of gold. And something that I always, I've always just kind of heard throughout the, whether it be, in my job or, since I've been paying attention to all this stuff, it's like the marginal mind or the marginal sale or whatever is that's what makes the difference. And it's always just been like, I was never into, being that I was on the far left, if you will, zero spirituality, zero, belief of higher power or any of that type of stuff. But I tell you what, man, as soon as, and I told my wife, I was like, look, this was me as a complete amateur. I had zero experience doing this, but I took some time and looked up like bull flag or cup and handle and all these different things that I just started coming across. And yeah, I was like, holy cow. I was like, man, this thing's about to blow. And I told my wife, I was like, specifically, I was like, June 1st, something's gonna go down in 2019. And sure enough, like it was a big breakout in gold. Everybody had talked about how it'd been consolidating under 1350 and all that. And from that moment moving forward, I was like, yo, this chart thing is no joke. It's no joke. It's not going to give you specifics. And
can you show, sorry I interrupt, can you explain to
yeah,
people, like this is basically the cup and then the handle on the right here that's malforming.
yeah,
Can you
sure.
go over that real quick?
Sure. So I look at it. I mean, I have to look at this whole thing in very big picture. Otherwise, the day-to-day stuff, while I post about it day-to-day, that's pretty much essentially to keep my sanity because no one else in my life really likes hearing about this stuff. So that's how I ultimately ended up on Twitter. Twitter doesn't have any choice but to listen. Anyways, yeah, I view this whole thing. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is essentially, what do we got here, from March 2001 to September 2018. It's just a massive bull flag. It's a massive bull flag. And there was the big cup at the bottom from, it's called Brown's Bottom, back when the Bank of England sold all their gold at the bottom, $200 an ounce, $250 an ounce or whatever in 99 or 2000. But the more interesting part of it is like, I was a history major, right, in college. I always hated school, but I always loved history. And I was always like, it was always just assumed you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, all that stuff. So I was like, well, I hate this, but I'm going to do something at least that I enjoyed learning about. So history was one of them. These gold charts and charts in general are just they're markers of time, of history.
Yeah.
And you can see, like, for whatever reason, gold has a tendency, from at least my limited amateur experience, it knows that something big is coming. It just knows. Whatever it is, I've heard the guy, Market Sniper, he calls it the God market. You could get into some conversations about the astrological side of it. Gold is the sun, silver is the moon, all that type of stuff. Anyways, whatever it is, gold knows when something's about to happen. And we all obviously know what happened in 2001. And if you look in the time frame before what happened in September, there was some serious activity going on. I mean, some serious activity. There was a huge breakout there, and then it pulled all the way back. And just much like today, what we're experiencing, I'm sure everybody back then was like, it's worthless, whatever, it's a relic, da da da. And then come to find out, we had the September 11th attacks, and that essentially was our gateway into perpetual war, for the better part of, essentially the United States been at war, as far as I see it, for my entire life. I'm 41, and yeah, we pretty much been doing war the whole time. But yeah, so anyways, I was hooked on it after that. A couple of things, just being able to call as a complete amateur, doing 15 minutes of research about like bull flags, cup and handles, and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, something's gonna happen on June 1st, and damn sure enough, we got that big breakout. And from that point, like I had already stacked a good amount of like mining shares and stuff like that. And anyways, it obviously it kind of got me now into this mode where I put a tweet out years ago. I copied or put Peter Schiff and Mike Maloney on there. I started out doing this to just pay my house off early. I was like, I'm gonna, I see what's coming. There's gonna be inflation. I'm gonna buy some gold. I'm gonna get some silver and some miners. I'm gonna pay off my house. Well, what ended up happening is like, holy cow! Since 2018, since I made the conscious decision to remove myself from the system, right? I no longer put money into a 401k. I no longer am worried about having like a savings account in the typical sense of it online. Like, I just completely started reworking my life based on, holy cow, like essentially everything I have thought for the last well, at that time, it was about 36 years, my entire life. Um, it was bullshit. You know,
Yeah,
it really,
all
it just
lies.
nothing lined up with what, nothing lined up with what I had previously known. And the big one that got me is when I just, people always talk to me about paying their, I got to pay my car note, right? And when I looked at the dollar bill after hearing those Schiff podcasts and all that, and I see that this note is for all debts, public and private, I'm like, oh my God, like it's just debt. Like the whole thing is just debt. And what are the ramifications of that? And holy cow, there was Lynette Zhang, I think, was the one that I haven't listened to her in forever, but she had a quote that stuck with me. It still sticks with me. Is if you never know the truth, how many lies can you be told, or something along those lines? And the answer is unlimited. You know, if you don't know some level of basic truth, you could be lied to all day long. And so what I came to quickly realize, and I'm a fast learner, fortunately and unfortunately, um, essentially, I lived my entire life thinking that the dollar was money, when in actuality, it's the complete opposite. The dollar is just debt. And we're just trading debt back and forth. And in a debt-based monetary system, you are either going to there's either going to be inflation or deflation. Obviously, this this didn't just come to me. Hidden Secrets of Money by Mike Maloney, and listening to Schiff and Egon von Greyer's and all those people out there. I mean, there's tons of them, and all of this just snapped in my head. And at that point, I was like, it's going to happen immediately. This whole thing is going to fall apart like now. They've been raising rates in 2018, and sure enough, boom, like we had the whole freak out in 2018 and all that stuff. And you know, I have just seen what there has always been a narrative that has been assigned since I started paying attention to this stuff. The narrative assigned in the media never really fits what I see from a market perspective. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's
Totally get what you're saying. Yes, I understand.
yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but the one that really got me, the repo crisis in September 2019, was the big one. That's when like I was like, oh my God, this is it. They're stopped quantitative tightening at that point. And that's when the balance sheet was at like 3 trillion or whatever. And then the whole, not QE they started talking about. And and then it went to, okay, well, the time has come to start expanding our balance sheet again. And I'm like, there's a crisis coming. There's a massive crisis. I wrote my dad a letter. I timed it was actually a week before the repo crisis, but I wrote my dad a letter. I still have it to this day. And I told him that I was like, there's going to be this massive calamity that's coming. And this was in September 2019. And so again, sure enough, you get into December 2019, we start seeing all these like videos popping up of like people collapsing on the street in China. And I started telling people in my life, they had long been since tired of hearing me talk about the monetary side of the house and all that stuff. No one cared. And so I started telling people that I'm like, yo, there's this thing going on, and we better start paying attention to it. I mean, this looks like, look at this. And they're like, yeah, but what I'm reading over here says that it's just the flu and, this, that, and the other, and no big deal. Well, we all know what came of that, right? And it just I'm just still flabbergasted. I can't put it into words of how where things went from the whatever it was, couple of weeks to slow the spread to, you know, without getting into too much detail, I pretty much almost lost the whole shebang in that time period. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad, because I just didn't buy it. I did not buy it. I was terrified out of my brain for about a month, especially when when it really started spreading around the U.S. or people were talking about it spreading around the U.S. and you're seeing the morgue trucks outside the, you know, the hospitals and all that. I was terrified for a month. And, you know, honestly, I was like, I made a complete mistake with the gold and the silver and the miners and all this stuff. I I was terrified. And then what happened? Boy, they put so much money in. You watch the balance sheet go, I mean, straight up. And what got me to realize, wait a minute, something else is going on. It kicked me out of that fear. I saw a woman wearing a Lily Pulitzer mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know who Lily Pulitzer is?
One of those that's like see-through. Is that what you're talking about? Like, more like,
No, it's a
like,
designer. Lily Pulitzer. They're in all
oh,
the
it's
fancy
design. I didn't
malls.
know. I thought it was one of those with holes, like a see-through, kind of like a cool-looking
Yeah.
mask or whatever.
No, it's a designer. It was a designer thing. So if you, when we get off, you know, look up Lily Pulitzer and you'll see she's a huge designer for women's fashion. And it's got all these bright, vibrant colors on it. And so I saw I saw a woman wearing a Lily Pulitzer mask, and I'm like, this isn't about, this isn't about safety. Because I had gone out in January, or it might even been December. I stacked up on uh N95s and all that stuff because I was like, if I'm, you know, this mask may actually do something. Cloth masks, I knew immediately. I was like, this is BS.
Yes.
And it just kept getting like, that's when things really started getting tough. And I personally attribute this whole thing, like, the best metaphor to put it is, it's like the Matrix, man. Like, you unplug yourself from the system. You know, this whole thing runs on us continuing to do the same thing over and over again. Put your check in the 401k, you know, put your money in the savings bank, go to grade school, go to college, get a job, and then die. You know, the whole thing is just built on that system, essentially. When you extract yourself from that system, the system gets angry at you. And
Angry. Yeah.
I kind of liken that to what you see going on with like the, you know, the WEF or all that stuff. Like, somebody, you know, has some leverage over the system, and people have been leaving the system. I think it's the reason we've seen all this censorship over the last couple of years, is because they have to stop people from leaving the system, right? And what is the old saying? It's the beatings will continue until morale improves. I mean, essentially, in my opinion, we've been living 1984. I read 1984 in like 2019, and I had goosebumps the whole time reading that book. It is literally, I mean, these guys got it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
they got it as a textbook. I mean, I read it as a kid, had no idea what it, you know, I was just like, yeah, give me the hell out of here. Let me, whatever. Had to read it in school. Read it as an adult. I'm like, we're living this. And that was before any of the, you know, maybe it was right into COVID time frame. I don't know, but man, it was, and it just kept going. You saw the pressure get applied, you know, again, during that time frame, you know, I was like, okay, so you guys, normally you're telling me that it takes how many years to do a one of these, and this one you just did in what, like, what, 3 months? You know,
Yeah.
no,
Get ready.
no, thank
Warp
you.
speed, right? Warp speed.
Yeah,
Hurry up.
exactly. I'm like, I want, you know, I never trusted Trump in the first place. Second off, you got Trump, you know, saying that there's going to be this warp speed thing, and you know, everybody was just freaking out. I'm like, no way, dude. And they're telling you that it's emergency use authorization. They're telling you that, you know, it's experimental. This, and I hear all that. I'm like, no, I'll just, you know, from all the data you could see right out in front, you know, it's like, yeah, the disease isn't really bad as it was made out to be, and yada yada yada. Well, long story short, I got fired in October of 2021, which was probably like one of the low points of my life. You know what I
So,
mean? I'd been
so
with,
one second on that. This is
yeah,
honestly, I knew this conversation was going to be beyond interesting. I had some really interesting guests, but honestly, yours and the way you're putting things together, I want to make like, because this channel, as you know, is not, it's small still, and I think you know, for the bigger audience channels, you're looking at like thousands of followers. a lot of videos that go like an hour or something, a lot of people would watch. I like to do like a 25 to 25-minute, like 3 sessions with you, and leave the
Yeah,
part two of why you got fired, because this is what people want to hear. Like average
yeah.
normal people like me and you, this is the story they want to hear. And before we finish, I just want to make sure that you know that our story, besides the whole thing with your politics at the beginning and socialist part and all that, everything you said, the story is identical. With the wake up call, it was just a little earlier than you, maybe 3 years before you, with Peter Schiff. He was my cousin, upstate New York, that was sending me videos. And I had that same wake up call when it comes to, like, I was thinking Trump was going to
Oh,
make the difference and all that. And then I listened to Peter Schiff and I was like, whoa, he laid out all those facts. And it was just like a complete, it just clicked.
yeah.
And like I said, everything you said, it is an, and the repo market in 2019 you mentioned, and you,
Mhm.
I can't believe you said that, because that's exactly when I was like, okay, I did the same thing with my family. Basically sat them all down and I said, I'm buying, this is what I'm buying. I'm going to buy more gold, I'm going to buy more silver. Okay, this is what we're doing. There is something major that's about to happen. I listened to Gerard Celente. He was talking about the masks and stuff. He says something big is going to come down before the videos out of China came out with people dropping. And everybody
Yep.
from my family almost looked at me like I was nuts. And then they were calling me 2 weeks later or a month, whatever, because I was that close to, just from listening. I was subscribing to Trans Journal with Gerard Celente. And
Yep.
it was just, like I said, a very similar story to that. But like I said, I want to
Yeah.
keep this on a part two, and me and you will go over that when it works for you. And I just want
Yeah.
to ask the from you, where can people follow you? I follow you on Twitter. Is there anything else in the last minute, if you can tell us where people can follow you? And that's about it for
Nope,
today.
that's it. Yeah, my handle is at Silverbark3. Nowhere else. I'm not on any other social media platforms. And yeah, there's
I
more.
will.
Like the story that regular people have is what's going to break this thing wide open, because it's been like we've had all the bigger names kind of, distributing information, right? And when I say that, I think of the Peter Schiffs, Mike Maloney's, Chris Martinsons, things of that nature. And I mean, there's only but so much they can. There's only but so much they can do, right? It's like small business is what makes up, the majority. There's only but so much the big boys can do. Big boys can do it, but what it's going to come down to in the end is people like you and me having a conversation and taking this, you know, everything we've done. Essentially, like Twitter is kind of essentially it's like a electronic brain, if you will. Like it's kind of weird in that front, but taking it from the digital world and getting here to, face to face, having conversations between regular people. If nothing else, just like people need to know what regular people have gone through over the last couple of years. I mean, because I'll tell you, one way that you really get things moving is you start taking away regular people's livelihood, and the ability for them to, provide for their family. And it doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, child, whatever. You start taking away that ability, you're going to change real quick. And so you're going to see change real quick. And you know, uh, I would just say on leading into the next one, I think the there are no coincidences is something that I learned very early on in these markets, if you will. Nothing is really a coincidence, and it's not a coincidence that you reached out to me to do an interview. I hesitated for a little bit. I'm like, you know what, man? No, this is the only way we're going to do it. It's the only way we're going to do it, and I'm not going to be anonymous and just whatever. Nah, like we have to start communicating and really, just that's all it really is. You see how much effort has gone into keeping people from communicating.
Got it.
Um, so therefore, it is vastly important that we do just that, whether it be via Zoom or talking to someone in the coffee shop. people got to know what's
Well,
not even about the
I
politics,
cannot.
not even about the money, but how your
That's
neighbor
right.
is being affected, how your brother is being affected, your son-in-law, whatever it may be. People got to know what the hell happened the last couple of years, because it's been unbelievable. And
Yeah,
I
well, this,
simply, again, using the allegory or the metaphor of, you unplug from that system and the system is going to come after you. And that kind of sums up maybe this first talk, and we'll get into the firing part next
we'll
time.
get into more. I'll actually give you a quick call right after this video, and I will post your Twitter handle below here, and we're going to do a part 2 for sure. And Jeff, thank you again. I'm going to cut out right now. I'm going to give you a quick call because I know a lot of people will enjoy this. Thank you. I will call you back in 10 seconds. So long, my friend.
Yeah,
We will
sounds good,
talk
Marco.
soon. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. See ya.
Yep.